Okay, so good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Nice to see your smiling faces, or not see your smiling faces, because it's Memorex, but that's okay. This month, we're all about the fact that God is in the house. And God is in the house always. I mean, there's no place where Spirit is not. And in our program on the very back, there's an affirmation. I'd like us to read it together if you guys are good with that, because it's so powerful. God is in my house. I am in the house of God. I trust the wisdom of my soul to direct me like my place. At the right time, in the right way, I say yes to God. Amen to life. Isn't that lovely?
Yes.
So if you love it, take your program with you, because it's on the very back. And that's what we're all about this month, is remembering that truth and finding pearls within it that allow ourselves to live life from that place of knowing, right? And today, I get the opportunity to talk about worthiness. And Joanne and I talk about topics, and then we assign Sundays, and I always end up with ones I kind of wish I hadn't, right? Yes, worthiness, man. That's been a big one for me. But it is a big one for me still, but it's because I really know my worth. And it's important that each of us does just that, know our worth. Because our worthiness, our worth, our value is not something that we have to earn. Surprise. It's inherently what we possess when we come here. Who we are, our flaws and all of it, who we are is so valuable and so worthy and very, very important to the entire world. Think about it. We each decided to come here at this time in this body with all of these dreams and goals and aspirations for a reason. And it's an important reason, even though we don't recognize how the whole tapestry of it all unfolds. But it truly is a tapestry of life, and we are part of it. And I'm confident I'm not the only one who has struggled with that sense of worthiness over the years, right? Even if we've got a really strong sense of ourselves, there's ad agencies and marketing and there's all of this, let alone people that kind of sow seeds of doubt when they don't even know they're doing it. But in that struggle to recognize it, once you get it, you've got it, and nobody can take it away. So I want to start with a real life example from the music world. Ringo Starr. He was the second drummer for the Beatles. The first one left very early on. And he wasn't feeling worthy enough of being a drummer for the Beatles. So he went to Paul McCartney. And Paul McCartney was like, thank you for saying something, because I don't know if I'm worthy of being the lead singer. Yeah. Right? And before you know it, the only one who really felt worthy of being a Beatle was John Lennon, right? The others ones, all the three other guys were like, even George Harris was like, are you sure I'm good enough to be here? But they helped each other work themselves through it. And it's a true story. It was part of the Beatle anthology. And so even people who you think are so incredibly talented and gifted and just totally worthy of you going screaming crazy about them have self-doubts. It's normal. But each of us is inherently worthy. And I make that as a statement because I got some facts to back it up. Okay? Think about the science of mind philosophy. In the science of mind philosophy, we know that each and every one of us is a unique divine expression of the One. The One. It is as Rumi put it, we are not a drop in the ocean. We are not only a drop in the ocean, we are the ocean in a drop. We are all that God is, we are. And we are divinely expressing it. And the One, whatever you call it, that very thing itself, is experiencing its creation through, with, and as us. So how could we be anything but totally worthy of all of our aspirations and all of our dreams and all of our, even all of our quirks? So it is true. God is always in the house, and each of us are the house of God. So, I have an affirmation. This is a full participation Sunday, by the way. We have an affirmation. Let's do this one. I am a unique expression of the divine, worthy of all the good that life has to offer. And that is so true. And then we take a breath and say, but is it? Right? Come on, you know? Because we falter sometimes, right? We become really harsh on ourselves. We become our own worst critics. We criticize our perceived flaws and our shortcomings. We beat ourselves up about our woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? There's all of that. And we tend to forget in our humanness that life is messy. And even if we think life isn't messy, for other people, like Ringo Starr, life is messy. It just is. And it is in that messiness that we get to truly define ourselves. We get to truly support ourselves. But it's so amazing, right? Because when life gets messy for somebody else, we can be so compassionate, right? Totally understand. I've been through it. Let me take care of you. Let me make sure all your needs are met, right? How can I make it easier for you? But then when we are stuck in the messy, do we say that to ourselves? Like, all right, self, how can I make this easier, right? How can I pamper myself? Do we take time out for a pause and like maybe hide under the covers for a day or so? Do we become compassionate for ourselves to the same degree that we're compassionate for others? I think for most of us the answer is no, because we're naturally giving people. We naturally give of our time and our talents and our treasures. Those of us in this philosophy just sort of do that. And once we get to that place where we know we're worthy, or we get to that place where we know we're starting to lose that worthiness, it's about taking time to be you. Buddha once said, you yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserves your love and your affection. Think about that. I love that idea because we're each unique. We each have our own talents. We each have our own flaws and imperfections. And it is from that messiness, those flaws, those imperfections, that we can be compassionate. And we can be respectful of others. And we can totally understand that it's not always about having it all together and those little ducks in a row. Nobody has that all of the time. We get a perception that they do. But when we get that perception, then that's because we're doing comparisons. We're creating a judgment. And even though that judgment is a positive judgment, like, whoa, she's got her act together, 9 times out of 10, she doesn't have her act together any more than I have my act together. But when we start to compare and we start to judge, we start to lose our individuality. The value of our individuality starts to lessen. And we are each of us, very, very worthy. Here's another affirmation. I celebrate my unique gifts, recognize my worth in the world. Hey, this is working so far. I like it. All right. So, is everybody feeling worthy? Right? Y'all there? Good, because it's really important. Because when we're not feeling our worth, 2 things tend to happen. We totally dilute our joy. And the second thing is that the law of life says, hold on to your seat, whatever you believe, you receive more of, right? Yeah. So when we're not worthy, we're sort of missing the boat on a couple of factors. It's like there's this invisible weight, and we can't shake it. And we don't think anybody else has that weight, right? Because we're in it alone. But we're not in it alone. We're in it in divine partnership. But when we think we're in it alone, we start to suppress ourselves, right? We start to try to fit in, or try to make ourselves so small that nobody notices. Anybody ever do that? And we just don't engage fully in life. We take kind of a back row seat, and we become quiet, and we observe, and then we judge ourselves even more because we're observing everybody else. And before long, we don't even know what our true feelings are because we're just busy pleasing. There was a Julia Roberts movie, I don't even know what it was called, but she wanted to be married, and so she'd get in these relationships, and inevitably, they'd leave her. But she finally decides, I'm not gonna have a man in my life for a while, and she goes out for breakfast, and she realizes she has no idea how she likes her eggs, right? Because it was always how the guy liked his eggs, and she had no idea how she liked her eggs. And that's when we start giving up our worth. That's what happens. We can't even order breakfast without trying to please someone. We start to hold back. We start to pretend. We start to put ourselves on hold as we try to be someone who is actually worthy, when we actually deserve all of it ourselves right here and right now. So there's no reason to hide ourselves. There's no reason to be small. But it's so easy to do that. But that is where the law of life, otherwise known as cause and effect, comes into play. Because Spirit just says yes. Whatever your predominant thought and feelings are, is what the universe thinks you want. Because that's what you're thinking about, and that's what you're feeling, and so I'm going to give you more of that. So if you want to feel unworthy, I can do that, right? I can even give you a lot of people to hang out with that'll help you do that, right? Because the universe does things big, really big. But when we know our worth is inherent, when we know that, like truly know that, then we get more of that. We get more ways to express ourselves and our joy. Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. Yeah. You're right because you're the boss. You're the cause. And the universe is just your employee delivering the effect that you've asked for. So whatever widget is in your dreams or your desires, when you think about that from a place of worthiness, from a place of joy, from a place of satisfaction, right? From a place of knowing this and so much more, when we live from that place, And the universe also just gives us a nice big yes. Because it always works. It's called the law for a reason. It always, always works. Now, there have been times, at least for me, where I've been really disappointed in the results, right? And I kind of wish it didn't work that way, but I'm still the boss. I'm just a disillusioned boss. But I can get that back. And how do I do that? I become compassionate with myself. I stop comparing. I stop judging. I start being the solution for myself. I take time to pray. I hang out with like-minded individuals. I hang out with people who are successful. I hang out with people who don't always have to have their act together, and that's okay for them. And all of that just sort of builds to a place where life is pretty awesome. And I think that's why we gather. We gather for that, for an opportunity to open our hearts. Rumi wrote the following: "You were born with potential. You were born with goodness and truth. You were born with ideas and dreams. You were born with greatness. You were born with wings. You are not meant to be crawling, so don't. You have wings. Learn to use them and fly. I know this truth about you." Last affirmation. Wow. I do, man. You do. You do. You matter. And you know who you matter the most to? Is yourself. Think about that. You matter most to yourself because you're the boss. It's nice to be the boss. Isn't it nice to know that every single person is their own boss on the level of life? When you really begin to live life from this place, and you know your sense of joy and your sense of purpose, and you realize that compassion is something you can give to yourself as well as to others, what happens is that your abilities become amplified. Your energy level, right, starts becoming up here in that space of easy flow. You're not mucking down here anymore. And up here, this is a lovely place. That energy of love and happiness and joy, that vibration, it's a great vibration. We've all experienced it, and we all love it there. And we can all stay there more than not by just being ourselves. But here's what also happens when we know our self-worth. We start to see the self-worth in others. And it becomes our responsibility, I believe, as citizens of this world, to do good work, to smile at someone who looks very sad, to open up a door, to be gentle and supportive and not criticize, not be in a hurry all of the time, but just to understand, okay, it isn't that clerk's problem that this line is so long, right? It isn't. It's not her fault that the woman in front of me has 12 items to return on Amazon, and I only have one, and she's not organized about it, it's about being chill, to stay at that vibration. Because when we know that we matter, it is our divine duty to share that with other people, to share that they matter too, and to help them. There's a story in Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul. There's a story, and it was about a teacher who had a brand new room of students. She'd not ever been to this school before. And by their name on the roster, there was a number. 145, 155, 143, 141. And she thought to herself, man, I've got a class of brilliant students showing up. Just brilliant. A room full of geniuses, and I get to teach them. She was so excited. And so she started treating them like geniuses and giving them really challenging exercises and having really deep discussions and debates and sharing of ideas and concepts, right? She knew that she could learn as much from these students, because they're so brilliant, as they could learn from her. And so she treated this class as if they were geniuses. The students did great, A's and B's, highest attendance, did great. And so the principal came in and said, he's like, you are just a miracle worker. I cannot believe how wonderful this class was for you, for everybody. He's like, it's a miracle. And she's like, well, not really. They were really smart to begin with. These kids were geniuses when they showed up. I just had to coax it out of them to start talking. And he's like, are you kidding me? And so she said, you gave me all their IQs. And he's like, no, those are their locker numbers. Yeah. Right? But the point is, what goes around comes around, right? If we start out from that place of knowing every single person we meet today is divinely happy and content and is going to receive value from just me being in their space, if we start off with that intention, imagine what we could generate in this world. Just imagine. So, your assignment this week is to acknowledge your worth. Every time you walk by a mirror, just wink at yourself and say, you got it, kid. Or I know I'm worthy. Or wow, that's so true. Well, I don't care what what statement you make to yourself, unless you're really bold and then you can make it out loud, that's okay. But every time you walk by a mirror, just affirm it. And then recognize that that's true for other people as well. Because it is. In the long game, it's true for every single one of us. And we each have a responsibility to know it for ourselves, to live it out loud, and to know it for everybody else, whether they agree with you or whether they don't. And that is the truth. Namaste.